And welcome to episode number 33 of The Final Whistle. I am Kyle, he is Mark, and we have brackets. Brackets are out, the madness is here, we are ready to go. As the madness did start yesterday at the time of this recording, continues today at the time of this recording being released. But Mark, first off, how the hell are you?
Well, outside of all this windstorm and constantly being afraid that my Wi-Fi and internet's going to go out, I mean we're great. We have the opportunity to root for our favorite teams. Both of us here for the first time in I believe 4 years. We got to watch some crazy game winners. Actually, some hometown teams as well. Getting into the big dance, which I'm sure we're going to deep dive into here shortly. But I mean, a crazy weekend to say the least, and we're about to get started on one of the best sporting events basically of every single year. So I mean, I can't wait.
Yeah, we kids, we're going to dive into the regions, the matchups, and there was a lot of news that come out of this week. Especially, let's start with the big news. As you see the bracket on your screen right here, as we posted, there is a lot, especially when it comes to. But let me ask you first, Mark, before we get going. What stood out to you before we get into an actual region? What stood out to you after watching the selection show last week that was kind of like not eye popping, but some you're going to be keeping your eye on throughout this whole tournament as it progresses?
Yeah. So I mean, as Kyle, we kind of talked about it yesterday as the selection was happening live. What was I think the most interesting to me and what I'll be watching is, I mean, your number one overall seed and your number two overall seed in the entire tournament have the hardest brackets of all, right? So we were talking yesterday, obviously, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you obviously see Kyle is wearing his Michigan gear as they became the number three overall number one seed, right? But when you look at it, Duke being the number one overall seed basically pulls the hardest bracket of anybody out there. With Michigan State, who could have been a two seed, you have UConn as their two seed, who at one point was 18-0 and ripped off a bunch of wins. You have St. John's, who was severely underseeded, and I believe they also have Arkansas in their bracket as well. Now I could be wrong, but
No,
um,
Arkansas's in Arizona's bracket, the
I
two
believe
overall seed.
well their four seed is also extremely strong as well. So I mean, when you look at it for Duke especially, you basically dominate the entire year. You beat Michigan in a crazy big matchup, and you kind of end up getting the short end of the stick when it comes down to it. Now, do I expect Duke to pretty much walk through all of them? Yes, I do. But I mean, each and every game, as far as, and now this is going to be, this might sound kind of a homer pick, but if you have been watching college basketball the last few months, Ohio, like they even have potentially Ohio State in the second round. Ohio State isn't a gimme game either. They've been playing really well down the stretch.
It
They're a
took
long
Michigan to
Big
the
Ten,
wire on
yeah,
Friday. Took Michigan down to the
and
wire.
well, and they're a long, they're a rangy Big Ten team, and Big Ten teams, even in basketball, are extremely scrappy. So I think that's my big thing is you kind of don't even reward your number one overall and number two overall seeds who also won not only their conference in the regular season but in their tournament as well. So they were basically double conference championships winners, and they kind of get the harder brackets as opposed to a Michigan and a Florida who I think got a bit of an easier road.
Yeah, and we look at might as well start with the East since Mark brought that up. As we might people or some people calling, I think I'm going to be calling it too. It might be the bracket of doom.
Oh, it's
As
a bracket of hell.
it has to because you got Kansas in there, you got
That's who it
St.
was. Kansas,
John's,
yes.
Kansas in there, St. John's, UConn. You know UCLA's or Michigan.
Michigan State.
UCLA's not a sleeper. Michigan State. It's gonna be a tough bracket for Duke. And being the number one overall seed, usually maybe you get rewarded for not the toughest, but also you gotta remember the metrics. You gotta remember the records, and there's just couple good teams in here as well that no one's talking about. Northern Iowa won the Missouri Valley Conference last weekend. They've been back in the tournament for the first time in a couple years, so they're looking about that. And also you got Cal Baptist. You got the first ever tournament for them, who we really don't think is going to do much, especially against a Kansas team. So in Michigan State, you can never count out Izzo. You got Izzo in there, who's making an appearance for the 28th time in the NCAA tournament, so hats off to them. And UConn's UConn, and it's very interesting that the runner-up for the Big East is in the same bracket as their champion St. John's, and they will not meet it until the Elite Eight if they get that far. So doubt they'll get that far. One of them will get.
Right.
I mean, we look at St. John's. Everybody thought St. John's was going to be an ultimate pick last year, and they got blown up and lost in I think the second round or the
Yeah.
Sweet 16. So it's going to be an interesting bracket. Now the 8-9 game is always a toss up. Ohio State, TCU. In this region, do I think looking at all the 5-12? Remember, there's always that 5-12 record or 5-12 game that kind of slips up somebody, and I don't think the 5-12 happens here. I think
No, I
St.
don't
John's
think in this region.
is just too much. There's another 5-12 I'm looking at. We'll discuss in a little bit, but as this is a sneaky quiet game as no one's talking about Louisville and South Florida. As South Florida won the American Conference on Sunday night against Louisville team
It
who,
looked really good.
yeah, they looked really good against Wichita State, and you had Louisville and from the ACC who's really playing some good basketball. Fell short of the ACC championship a couple days ago, so this is very interesting. And unfortunately, Mark, Siena is just you love to watch all these teams upset, but it's good. It's also good when you see these smaller teams like Siena, who's facing number one Duke, who's pretty much it's David versus Goliath at this point. Kansas and Cal
Boozer might beat
Baptist.
him by himself.
Yeah, you got UConn and Furman's out of the SoCon. So there's a lot of, I would say interesting games, but, sometimes if out of this bracket, let's say, what smaller team you think would have a chance to maybe pull the big upset to kick off the weekend?
So ironically enough, and I'll kind of give you a preview of one of the. Now I've already in Kyle. We're obviously in the pool that you invited me to yesterday, but I am in a pool that I do every year, and I'm actually looking at that South Florida team coming in and beating Louisville. I think
I can
they're
see that.
getting really hot, and they're just they're a good basketball team. I think they're a sleeper team. Obviously, they don't play very many people, but in this specific region, that's really where I'm looking, as well as now it's not as big of an upset, but I could see UCF beating UCLA. Why? UCLA being a 7 seed, now obviously it's a 7-10 matchup, but UCLA being a 7 seed and with all their injuries, their two best players got injured in the Big Ten tournament. So if they don't get healthy or they're not healthy enough, you could see a UCF team who also got hot down the stretch, kind of maybe shock them, I think. And there's people that are kind of looking like, I mean, you have Riley Kugel over on what's it called on UCF. He's averaging, I mean, about 14 and a half points a game. But they also have Fulks who's averaging another 14 points a game. So you've got a two-headed monster, and UCLA's two-headed monster isn't potentially going to be there.
Right.
I believe Dent's hurt, and that's about 14 points a game that they're going to be missing if he doesn't come in. And I don't remember the other individual that's hurt, but I believe it's Bildo, and Bildo is almost a 20-point-a-night scorer as well. So I mean, between those two games, I mean, I think I like South Florida more than I do UCF, and I think these UCLA cats are probably going to play if I had to put my money where my
Oh, they'll
mouth is.
play.
But I mean, I think those two games in this specific region, as we kind of go region by region here, are the two to watch for a potential upset. Excuse me. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a team like a Northern Iowa or something like that could give St. John problems, just because the whole thing around St. John's is they're very underseeded and they got played into this bracket of hell. So how do they come out when they've won their conference tournament and they're lower than the very team that they beat and might have to play them again? Like, what does that do to your mindset? Does it help or does it hurt you? And I could see it potentially hurting a team like a Northern Iowa that comes in hungry, because we all know that these quote-unquote mid-major schools come into this specific tournament every single year, not only on fire, but really hungry to just make a name for themselves for 1 year.
Yeah, right. And go to your point, Mark. This was the first questionable the committee made. We love committees. Going back to our football talk and
Yes, we do.
some weird committee things they do. But this is in St. John's lower than UConn. I find that very, very interesting because, as Mark, you mentioned that they won the Big East this past
They
Saturday.
just beat them this weekend.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because of the schedule, because UConn was almost favored to get a 1 seed. Now, St. John's had a couple more losses than UConn, but at the same time, it's interesting. Now, I get there's rules in place where if you play each other 3 times, I have to look. I
I
don't.
believe it is 3 times you don't get into a region, because
I think that's 8. I think that's the 1 and 8 matchup, or the 1 and 8
Oh, yeah,
seeds.
yeah.
because they talked about that in Michigan Ohio State over the weekend. But no, when you, I would be upset if I was St. John's because
Yeah.
you beat UConn and you get stuffed with Duke in potential Sweet 16 instead of running through the bracket, which you could. I mean, granted, Michigan State, UCLA is going to be tough, obviously. Maybe Louisville, but you. That's a bad draw for St. John's. I'm going to be honest
Well,
with you
not to
because
mention they'll have to play Kansas potentially in the second round, and
yeah,
Kansas has arguably the number one pick coming into this year. In question with that cat from Arkansas, the freshman player of the year for the SEC, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I mean, St. John's has death row as
yeah,
a 5 seed kind of going in because obviously we know Kansas has been here and done that before many a times with Bill Self, and I mean they always have a player or two that could take over a game, and there's no difference this year.
yeah. And does St. John's make it to Sweet Six? I'll be very upset if I was Rick Pitino coaching and not making it to the Sweet 16 because you lost to Kansas. Kansas now credit in no disrespect to Kansas. Kansas has been getting hot.
They were playing
They've been
really well.
playing well down the stretch here after those couple of losses late January, early February. So they're kind of turning it around a little bit. But this is a bracket of doom. And into my question I posed earlier, I don't know. If this was football, I would maybe think North Dakota State or Michigan State, but it's not football. So I think I'm going with. I think I'm going to go with. I don't know who I would go with. Probably. Probably. I don't even know. Probably not. I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna do Northern Iowa. I hate to say it, but I think if that's the upset,
Ooh, Kyle.
I,
I
I,
mean, like I said, I could see it. And Northern Iowa has, I believe, they made a run, a few years ago. The last time they were in the tournament, they won a big game as well, or they played really close. It was one of the two. But Northern Iowa definitely has had success, at least in our lifetime, in the tournament once or twice when they do get in. So I mean, at the end of the day, when you have a team that's kind of mentally reeling and probably upset about the way the hand that they were dealt kind of played out. I mean, you never really know what they could be, and we all know about these mid majors. For those of you that maybe are watching college basketball for the first time, either just this year alone or in general because of this podcast or any other podcast you might have been listening to, mid major teams are big on 3-point shots alone. If a mid major team gets hot, you see it about once or twice every year. They'll start to just bomb threes, and then you can't keep up because they just keep bombing threes, and they play this scrappy type of defense. I could see a couple mid majors this year really putting it on some of these teams.
yeah. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how that goes. So we're gonna let's pick these games. Let's pick all the way till the Final Four, and I will leave it off. Give it to you, Mark. Who are you? Let's go. Let's see how we want to do this. We're gonna do the East, obviously the one we just talked about. I want to see how we want to do this. All right, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just go back and forth like how we normally do it. So we'll start because I think the first game, Duke in Siena, plays Thursday. I really don't think we have a problem with. I
I
think
don't think Duke starters play by midway of the second half.
yeah. So we got Duke. Let's do Ohio State TCU. This is an 8-9 game that can kind of flip back and forth. I I think I'm going to go Ohio State. I think they're right in the hot hand. I don't think we need to ask. I think we're good on that as well. Mark's picking Ohio State.
Bruce Thornton, baby,
Bruce
all-time
Thornton.
leading Buckeye scorer.
Yes, so Duke Ohio State will play in the second round Saturday afternoon. Let's do St. John's versus Northern Iowa. My upset pick, but Mark, I just think St. John's could be able to overpower them at least for the second round here to get past Northern Iowa.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a closer game than what people expect. I think St. John's ultimately does probably get past them here, but I would not be surprised, especially after our conversation here this morning, if Northern Iowa pulled this out. And I know this windstorm is affecting all of our Wi-Fi's as well, so this should be rather interesting. I know at least this East division or East bracket is probably the craziest one that there is.
Yeah, so let's do Yeah, Kansas Cal Baptist. Do we see an upset after? I don't see. I think this holds here. I think Kansas beats Cal Baptist. Unfortunately, good for Cal Baptist making it for the first time, getting
Yeah, this is
getting
the
into
first time ever, I believe, right? They said
yeah,
last night.
getting tournament. Well, here's your prize. You get Kansas. You get Kansas first round, and so there you go. You get Kansas, and you probably get beat. So give me Kansas in that one. What about one of your upset picks, Mark? Louisville, South Florida. Are you sticking with it, or are you going with Louisville to kind of hold chalk?
I honestly think this is where I'm gonna kind of go against the grain. I'm gonna pick South Florida here. While I know Louisville is as far as basketball goes, a basketball powerhouse school, I think this is where they falter here. I think there's going to be a few upsets in each region, and I'm going to go with USF. I think it's a game winner type of situation where maybe Louisville's been playing down for most of the game. They figure a way to crawl back into it, and USF kind of slams the door and gets to storm the court just to lose in the very next round.
This was a tough one. I think Louisville. South Florida's playing well, but I just think Louisville's just too much in the end for South Florida. South Florida was the one seed out of the American Conference, but
Yep.
I could see an upset potentially here, 6-11, but I think Louisville's just gonna hold them off just enough. Could it be a whole two-quarter game, maybe overtime? Yes, but I think Louisville ends in this one. All right, Michigan State, North Dakota State, Mark. I think we both know where we're going there. We're going Michigan State, right?
Cohen Carr is probably going to have a highlight tape of his own just in this game and the fucking dunks that he has. Number 55. If you guys ever watch an MSU game, just watch that kid fly, if nothing else. I don't think I've ever seen him shoot a jump shot, but if you just watch him dunk, it's probably the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen it I actually got to see it in person last year at the Cleveland site, and I about shit my pants when he did some of the dunks he did. So,
And they have Jeremy Fears, who's been one of the better
yep.
point guards. Kind of a troublemaker, if you will. If you watch games, kind of he gets in trouble and kicks people in the yahoos and all that. So it's been. If it was
You always need
football, I
one.
would say. If like I said, if this was football, I would probably be
I would go the
picking.
other way.
I'll maybe put this on upset alert. But basketball, I think Michigan State will handle them. But you never know. It's March. But I think I'm going Michigan State here. All right, UCLA versus UCF is Big Ten American. I think this is tough. UCLA's been playing well without their two. Even played well without their two stars. Almost beat Purdue.
Yep.
UCF's kind of fell short in American mark, but I think UCLA pulls it off.
Yeah,
Pulls out the
well,
victory
this is
first round.
my other potential update or upset, excuse me. I do think UCLA probably pulls this one off. I figure um it was either going to be the 6-11 or the 7-10 in this region that would kind of shake some things up outside of that St. John's game where it kind of just depends. I do think UCLA probably pulls this one out, and I'm sure I'll go back and forth literally until the last minute on Wednesday to submit
Right.
this whole
Me too.
thing. But as of right now, I'm going to go UCLA just because I expect at least one, if not both of those players to play and at least make some type of impact on a lesser team.
Yes. So UCLA and I think UConn versus Furman. I don't think we have no problem picking. I think UConn and will be over Furman, unfortunately. Unless UConn has one of the worst games of their lives, I don't think we both see UConn losing. All right, back to the top here. Do we want to do? Yeah, let's just pick the whole region. Screw it. So Duke, Ohio State, both picked Duke, Ohio State. Mark, does Ohio State pull the upset and survive? I know your fandom says they will, but when you're looking at nationally and unbiased, who are you taking for getting to the Sweet 16?
As much as it breaks my heart, I do think Duke wins this one. I have been kind of talking, obviously, in our group chat, and I actually talked to my stepdad as well, who watches quite a bit of college basketball in his free time, especially around this time, as he usually either takes some time off or finds a way to get to one of the sites that are close. He's been doing it for years. I do think Ohio State, at bare minimum, has a puncher's chance. I think everybody's going to have this game all going to Duke's side, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's another close one, right? Ohio State has gotten really hot down the stretch. They could have and arguably should have beat Michigan as the Big Ten Player of the Year. Literally only scored, I think, 4 points up
Yeah.
until the end of the game. I mean, they're long, they're rangy, and anytime you have a point guard in Bruce Thornton who is liable to drop a 30 ball whenever he kind of gets hot, they do have the opportunity here. But I think the Boozer kids and Duke as a whole, is just going to be too strong. But I think it's a closer game than people think.
Yeah, I think Duke wins. Duke's gonna win, but I want if Ohio State plays way against they did against Michigan, and Duke kind of has a sloppy game, depending on what time this game's played. I do like Ohio State to keep it close. Do they pull the upset? Maybe, but I
If they
think
pull an
Duke
upset, I'll come up on this show next week on the
is a live
line
show
that
too. Live show
oh
too.
yeah, when I'm telling you right now, if they pull that upset somehow, some way, because it is the round of 32, so we should be on live right after that happens. I will come with my shirt off in Ohio, painted on my chest. I swear to you.
All you hear that here, folks. If it's live, you will have it next week. Mark will be have
If we get
paint
the
on his
number one
chest.
overall seed and the arguably the by far favorite to win this whole tournament with ease, I'll come with the script Ohio on my chest, shirtless for the whole live.
I love that. And that's going to be something to behold and witness, folks. And don't forget, we are live next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're on right here on YouTube. We are very excited for it to chat with you. We're going back to the NFL because we have a lot of NFL news to cover while we were covering this. So we're excited to hear your thoughts and what you think about it. And obviously, we'll kind of give an update on our brackets and talk about any big upsets that happen without that. So. All right, so we got both pick and Duke close. If Ohio State plays the way they can, they keep it close. Let's go St. John's, Kansas. This is tough, Mark. Both are playing well. Both are just I think St. John's close. I'm going St. John's over Kansas close to get to the Sweet 16 over Duke. Yes, I'm doing it. I think Kansas is a little vulnerable this year, even though they've been on a roll. They're vulnerable, and they could lose at any given moment. I mean, St. John's can too, but I think St. John's at least lasts one more round, and they get to Duke in the Sweet 16.
I am actually going the other way here. I know Kansas has a few more losses than what St. John's does, but I think when rubber meets the road, in a situation where you got to think about it. For those of you that don't really understand, the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament are basically back-to-back days. So once you win, you don't have a lot of time to practice or game plan. When you can't game plan, ultimately the cream is going to rise to the top. I think Darren Peterson has a takeover game against St. John's, being that you really can't game, like St. John's isn't going to have the time to game plan against him unless they're just looking ahead, which you can't do in this tournament anyways. And I think he takes over and pulls Kansas up to the top, only to lose to Duke, obviously, next round. But I think that's a Darren Peterson statement game after all the hate he's been getting for some of the time he took off. And I'm going to go Kansas there in a close one.
He's going Kansas Duke. I'm going St. John's Duke. What about we'll go with you? We'll start with you first, Mark. You had South Florida versus Michigan State as you pick South Florida to defeat Louisville. Is there another potential upset, or is Michigan State taking it to the Sweet 16 this year?
I think Izzo's got a good group here. I think he's got a senior-led group yet again. Big Ten's kind of following that motto all over the place of older groups in basketball and football. And I think that kind of holds true, holds fair, and I think MSU kind of gets past South Florida. South Florida probably used all their energy to get that upset, and they fall short against a very well-coached, historically coached Michigan State team.
Yeah, I had Louisville, Michigan State. I think Michigan State's just too talented this year. They're too talented to fall short in the second round. I like them to defeat when I picked Louisville, so I'm going Michigan State over Louisville. I think their momentum and their coaching is going to play a factor in carrying them over. And we had UCLA and UConn. That's going to be an interesting matchup at 2-7. If UCLA plays very well, they could defeat UConn. I think I'm picking UConn against Michigan State. I don't see UCLA. I can see UCLA hanging around, but I think UConn's going to pull weights at the end and kind of head on to the Sweet 16. Mark?
Yeah, I agree. As of right now, as we sit, just, and I hate to keep harping on it, right? But just because of UCLA's problems with injury and kind of the unknown as we look ahead, I think UConn probably takes this one at this current point in time. However, after the first round, after we kind of see UCLA play and see how their two star players play, again, I mean, they have a kid that's putting in 17 points a night and another kid that's putting in another 14 a night. So if those two can get in, be somewhat healthy, and kind of get the ball rolling. I think UCLA has a big chance to pull this upset, but I think it's very contingent on those two players being not only as healthy as possible, but as heated up as possible. Because UConn again, they did go on that pretty much 18 game win streak earlier in the season. They were last year's national champion. Their coach knows what he's doing, has been here before. So I think UConn at this moment in time does kind of edge this one out. But I could see UCLA and UCLA's players, if they do take this week to really get healthy, give some real problems to UConn. But as of right now, it's the unknown. I'm going to go UConn here.
Yeah, so I picked UConn. So UConn, Michigan State, and then you had Duke and Kansas. Mark, who are you take? Are you picking another upset, or is Duke holding serve
This
to
is
the
where
Elite Eight?
Duke's just going to dog walk them, I think. I don't know that Kansas has the firepower to kind of really compete with Duke, and they're not an overly great defensive team. They're giving up quite a bit of points. Duke has the ability to really match them kind of bar for bar as far as points go. I mean, I just really don't. I don't really see Duke having a problem with Kansas, and I think they roll.
Yeah, I don't see Duke. I think, like I said, Kansas viable, and I got Duke and St. John's. I think St. John's, after playing two tough games, I just think, yeah, I think St. John's ride will come to end in a Sweet 16. So I'm going to go Duke
And
over
Duke
St.
did just
John's.
beat them in November by 12 points. So,
Yeah,
I mean, as far as that goes, they kind of I mean, they didn't really pose much of a threat. And Kansas is giving up almost 70 points a game. So that's not the best recipe for success against a team like that.
yeah. So let's do. So I had Duke and Saint. Right now, I picked Duke, and then you had Mark, Michigan State, and UConn. Who are you taking? Does Michigan State get by UConn?
I actually do think they get by them here in this juncture. When I kind of start to look at things here, obviously both teams are kind of walking into this stumbling with UConn pretty much losing 2 of 3 to St. John's in a row. And then they also lost to Arizona, who obviously is another number one seed that we'll be touching on here shortly. Michigan State's only losses outside of in the Big Ten tournament, which obviously tournament play is pretty rough. They've only lost to Michigan and Duke outside of that Big Ten tournament in the last about month or so, 2 months. So when you look at it, I think Michigan State again is susceptible to get a win. I think they score at a higher clip, and I also think they have a bit more firepower. But this game could go either way. I'm going to take Michigan State, but I think one tipped ball here or one foul call there, and it could go either way. But I'm going to go ahead with Michigan State.
Yeah, I like Michigan State. I think Michigan State is. I think they're too good this year, man. I think where they at now. They could be vulnerable against UConn, but this is tough. We'll probably change our minds before we get to
Oh, 100%. I'll probably
get
change 4
to
different times.
get to Thursday. So, uh, yeah, I like Michigan State. I like Michigan State in this one. I think they're going to pull. I think they're going to pull the upset here. All right, and then the Elite Eight to get to the Final Four. We'll stop at the Final Four till we pick all the bracket. But Mark, Duke, Michigan State. I'm pulling the upset. I don't want to do it. I don't. But I think I'm going Michigan State over Duke.
What?
It's gonna,
What did
it's
you just
probably
say?
gonna change probably 20 times before I get there. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm going Michigan State, but it's probably not gonna stick over Duke to get to the Final Four. Duke has a track record, dude. They just have a track record where
They do.
they just fall short somehow. They haven't won a title in a while. The Big Ten hasn't won a title in a while, so they have that track record, dude. But I like Michigan State
Against
for now.
I like how you put it because actually Michigan State I think has a title before Duke has in the most recent years. I'm still gonna go Duke. I just don't know how you stop Cameron Boozer at this point in time. I mean that kid's a fucking monster. So unless he gets hurt, and he's got a fucking twin. So if you stop one, you still got to deal with another one that has NBA fucking DNA in his body. So I mean, I'm gonna go Duke. I don't know that anybody can really stop them this year except for themselves, and that's I think where Kyle is kind of alluding to is they can only really beat themselves at this point. I'm gonna go Duke for now, but it's really gonna depend on how they start to play after some days start to build up and they play every other day. There's not a lot of game planning. There's teams they haven't seen before potentially, and things of that nature. So I mean, I think at the end of the day, Duke does win, but I would not be surprised if this game is close, being that Michigan State has seen them before and didn't play them too horribly. If I'm not mistaken, when I pull it up in obviously, if depending on what app you use, you can see previews and things of that nature. Michigan State only lost by 6. Now,
That
I
was
didn't
earlier in the
watch
year
that,
too.
and
Earlier in the
yeah,
year,
and that
like
was
first.
right before Christmas on 12-6. They only lost by 6 points, and in that time, Duke was kind of blowing teams out of the water, and Michigan State did give them some problems. So I would not be surprised if Michigan State has an opportunity at the end of that game.
Yeah, so he's picking Duke. I'm picking Michigan State. We're to hold off on a Fun Four till we get all the brackets picked. So that is the East. We're going to move over to the West, as that is occupied by the number one seed and Big 12 champ, Arizona in the West. As this is another interesting bracket.
Another bad bracket of hell.
They got Purdue, who's the Big Ten tournament champions. They got Gonzaga, who's the West Coast Conference champions. BYU, who has the nation's leading scorer, and AJ Dambanta, and the freshman is only a freshman mark. Utah State, who just won the Mountain West. Your Hawaii Rainbow Warriors are in there. And there's a lot of things going on, Mark. What catches your eye in this part of the bracket?
I think what catches my eye the most is again, Purdue being a 2 seed after being a 7 seed in the Big Ten tournament. Now I do know that they try to kind of similar to football. They try to hold these tournament championships a little bit bigger, but them being a 2 seed is pretty surprising to me. As well as, so you get them in Arizona's bracket. You get a Wisconsin team that played well in the Big Ten tournament as well. They're in this bracket. You got a Gonzaga as a number 3 seed, but Arkansas, the SEC championship winner, and with the SEC Player of the Year, crazy freshman on that team, also being in this bracket. Arizona does not have a cakewalk.
No, they don't. And, even there's LIU, who's out of Northeastern Conference, at least that first game be a cakewalk. This is Gonzaga's in it. Potential Gonzaga Purdue Sweet 16 matchup. BYU hanging around. This is very interesting. And we gotta give credit to Queens University. This is their first ever tournament since being eligible. They're playing Purdue, just like Furman. Hey, congratulations! You won your conference. You're in, and guess what? You get to get your ass kicked by a number 2 seed in Purdue. So that's very interesting. Congratulations to
Very,
them for
very
getting.
good basketball right now. On top of it,
Yeah, they're playing very good basketball right now. They're playing very, very good as they came up. They were 7th seed in the Big Ten tournament, so that's going to be something to behold here. And I'm looking. It's just tough. The one game I think maybe, and I'll start with the upset. The one upset I think that could happen in the first round, I would say maybe Miami, Missouri. I like Miami over Missouri, or Missouri over Miami. The 7-10 game, the winner gets Purdue. I could see Missouri. They've been out of the SEC. They're playing well right now, even though they lost. But that's probably the only upset mark I see in this bracket, at least for the first round. That 5-12 Wisconsin High Point. Everyone's talking about it. I'm not too sure. I think Wisconsin's playing well enough to get past the first round. I like Missouri over Miami, for being honest, in a 7-10 game in the West.
I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. Miami comes into this tournament limping badly. They just got blown out by Virginia in the basically since November, the mid-November. They've lost 6 games and only won 2 games. So they're coming into this tournament, but basically just getting their asses whooped repeatedly in ACC play. They also obviously lost to Florida, but most people have.
Right.
Whereas Missouri just played Arkansas extremely, extremely well. They just beat Tennessee, who has also made it to this tournament. Um, and they beat Vanderbilt and Florida as well. So they've beaten some quality teams in the same run. I mean, they're playing really well and and whatnot. So I mean, at the end of the day, I do think Missouri probably has the best chance for an upset here, and I also wouldn't it, it wouldn't put it past me. I think they're the best case scenario. But if Texas does get off of that bubble playing game, I think they also have a chance to potentially beat BYU, as BYU kind of
Yeah.
basically has one guy, and if you shut him down, you probably shut BYU down, and you've seen it kind of time and time again. So I look for that game as well. Again, kind of these 6-11, 7-10 games are where you see a lot of the upsets, and I mean I think from there you kind of see that, and I think those are the two games that I'm looking at in this region as well.
Yeah, I mean, I could see BYU's been struggling too. They were a top 10 team early February, late January, February. And they kind of fell. They had to play in the first round of Big 12 tournament after losing a double bye. So they're struggling. I could very well see that. I think they could beat NC State, but I think if Texas, you're right, Mark. I think if Texas gets there, Texas could give them a run for their money in the first round of the tournament. I like that. I really do like that. Coming out of the SEC, Texas is one of the last four to get in, so they're going to be hungry and looking to prove something. And BYU, I mean, they struggled. They lost like their last like what was it, like last six or something out of whatever. So this is going to be very interesting. I yeah, that's a good game to that's an interesting game to keep your eye on. In the playing game, which is tomorrow night. They play in their playing game, so it'll be very interesting to see against BYU, and I like that. What about Hawaii Rainbow Warriors against Arkansas as they're playing? Arkansas is the four seed, Hawaii's 13th team. The Big West, Hawaii's first trip to the tournament in 10 years. How about that? In 10 years, it's their first tournament out of the Big West. So this is a very interesting bracket, Mark. And like you said, this is the bracket of doom part two, possibly with Gonzaga. No one's talking about Gonzaga. No one's talking, they're all talking about Purdue and Arizona, but Gonzaga's poor little Gonzaga just sitting there waiting around for their opportunity.
Yep, and we all know how Gonzaga plays. I mean, they play very fundamental. They've got two guys that are putting in almost 20 points a night. Obviously, they've played a much better schedule. Now, they did lose to St. Mary's, which they played them pretty much back to back. Both times in the last about month or so that they've played St. Mary's, but they've beaten teams like Oklahoma, who was a bubble team, Alabama, who scores the most points in the country. I mean, they got smoked by Michigan, but they also beat Kentucky and UCLA, who are both also in this tournament. So Gonzaga has a bit more skin in the game this year as opposed to recent years as far as teams that they've played and beaten. So I definitely could see them making a decent run in this tournament, depending on if they can kind of keep their head on straight.
Yeah, so let's go. Let's pick them like we did the East. Let's start. I think we all have Arizona. I really don't think there should be a problem there. So we're not even going to talk about the game. What about Villanova and Utah State? This is a very interesting game. Villanova out of the Big East under Kevin Willard. Utah State ran through the Mountain West, one seed throughout it all. That's a tongue twister. I'm going Utah State to beat Villanova. I just think they're a better equipped team right now. I mean, Villanova's kind of been up and down ever since Jay Wright left a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. So give me Utah State in 8-9 game to take on Arizona.
Yeah, I actually have both of those as well. I think Villanova, ever since Jay Wright obviously left, there's still always going to be a basketball school. That's their calling card. That's what people go there for. But at the same time, they're just not the same. They're not as well coached, I feel like, and they're not getting the same caliber of players. I mean, they're always going to be a tournament staple, but I do think a team like Utah State, who obviously has been making a run, they have similar to kind of what I've been talking about. They have two guys that are scoring 17 points a night. I mean, when you have a two-headed monster like that, I mean, you really kind of get going. Um, and Villanova kind of limps into this tournament as well, losing four straight. Obviously, those four games are twice to St. John's and twice to UConn. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have a Utah State team who only has lost one game in the last since November. So they're riding hot. They're riding high. and I think they continue that against a Villanova team who is just basically getting their asses whooped for the last 2 months.
Yeah, so I like Utah State. What about Wisconsin High Point? 5-12, that sneaky 5-12. Who do you like there? Is High Point pulling the upset, or is Wisconsin playing well enough to win to advance to the second round?
See, I think Wisconsin is just going to be too powerful here. The only games that they've lost are to three teams that are really high seeds in this tournament since November. They've lost to Purdue, they've lost to Michigan, and they've lost to BYU. And they also beat Michigan once in that stint. They also beat
Yep.
Purdue and Michigan State in that stint. So again, another team in Wisconsin who's playing well, who has a high motor, a high ego. You saw in the Big Ten tournament they were spraying threes everywhere, and they gave Michigan problems for a second time in that Big Ten tournament. I think High Point is they're at their highest point right now, and that's getting into their tournament, and that's about it. And they're about to become Low Point University after this game.
Yeah, like Wisconsin. Could this be an upset? Sure, but I just think Wisconsin's playing really well right now. They almost beat Michigan Saturday in the Big Ten semifinals, so I like Wisconsin to get the win over High Point. All right, what about Mark Arkansas and Hawaii? Hawaii is, like I said, the 12 is the 13 seed, losing or 10 years since playing the tournament. Arkansas SEC champs. Are your Rainbow Warriors pulling an upset, or are we getting Arkansas moving on to take on Wisconsin in the second round of the tournament?
So I believe we're on what is it, BYU in Texas?
No, Arkansas, Hawaii. Did you pick?
Yeah. It's we're having some wind problems. We'll edit a disclaimer in here. But as far as that goes, I think Arkansas rolls big time. They have two guys that are first round talents. They have Darius Acuff, who, if you watch the SEC tournament, even the highlights, he was all over the place. I mean, he's putting in 23 points a night. He's virtually unstoppable. And they also have Malik Thomas, who brings in another 16 points a game. I think they're just going to be too strong for a lot of teams in this tournament, and that includes Hawaii. Hawaii's sports this year are at an all-time high between football and basketball here, but I think this is where they get to go back and vacation in a beautiful island college town after they come into Arkansas City and just get their asses whooped.
Yeah, right. This is another. Hey, if this was football game, maybe upset alert. 'Cause Arkansas really does nothing in football, but I think Arkansas. John Calipari's just winning down there, so I like Arkansas over Hawaii. All right, BYU in the playing or BYU versus the playing winner, North Carolina State or Texas. Mark, I know you kind of thinking Texas is going to win the playing game. Who do you like out of BYU and Texas?
So while I did say that I could see this being an upset, especially because some of these playing teams kind of get that warm up game to kind of get their spark back going for the tournament. However, I do think this is a situation where BYU probably just is too strong. They have AJ DeBonsa, who is arguably the best player in the entire country outside of, or even when you put him up to Boozer over at Duke, he's putting in about 25 points a game. He's long. He's pretty much virtually unstoppable. And I think he probably wins this game on his own at the end of the day if he really wants to. And I just think, yeah, I just think BYU and their firepower up at the top of their roster is just too strong. But I could see this game being close if Texas has a good playing game and kind of rolls that spark that they find.
Yeah, I'm going BYU. I don't think. I mean, Texas could have the. I don't see any. I could see maybe Texas being more of a challenge to BYU instead of NC State. NC State barely got in as well, but I think BYU with the leading scorer in the nation, AJ DeBonta, who's only a freshman, mind you. I like BYU to get past the first round into the second round. Well, if you get to the second round, you might have to go up against. You probably got to go up against Gonzaga, who takes on Kennesaw State. Do we see any upset here, or is it chalk with Gonzaga defeating Kennesaw State?
I think Gonzaga probably just runs through Kennesaw State. For those of you that know anything about Kennesaw State, you probably only know them because you played that college football game the other year, where they were pretty much daring you to rebuild their team. Gonzaga is a basketball powerhouse, and I don't really see this being even a close game. Probably I think Gonzaga rolls.
Yeah, I like Gonzaga. I don't see this being a challenge, but you never know with March. All right, 7-10 game, Miami, Missouri. My upset. I'm going. You know what? I'm going Missouri. I'm sticking my upset. I think Missouri can do this and at least get to the second round. So I like Missouri over Miami. I mean, would it shock me if Miami won? No, because Miami made had a decent season, being the three in the turn in the ACC or in the ACC all year. But it would not surprise me if Missouri won. So I like Missouri in that one. And I guess since we're both picking Purdue, so who's winning? So who's facing Purdue for the 7-10 game? Mark, how do you?
I actually have Missouri winning this one as well. I think um, they're the hotter team coming in, and that matters in March. Again, I kind of alluded to it when we previewed this region. Miami's really limping into this tournament with a lot of losses in the back half of the year. That doesn't bode well for you in March typically. The way you walk into the tournament is usually how you walk out of the tournament, and that's playing like shit. And I think Missouri just has been playing a bit better. They have the upper hand in the last 2 months, and when you're kind of riding a hot hand, usually that transfers over. I like Missouri to play Purdue.
Yeah, so Purdue, Missouri for us. All right, so back to the top. Arizona, Utah State. Is there sneaky upset, or does Arizona keep kind of trickling down to the Final Four? And we all know Arizona's like Duke. They get all, wound up during the regular season, and, they're all the favorites, and then they fall. Does Arizona fall in the second round, or do they at least make it to the Sweet 16, Mark?
I think they for sure make it to the Sweet 16. This is not where I'm picking the upset. There might be an upset coming for Arizona here. As Kyle alluded to, I alluded to it a lot yesterday. Arizona has a knack for being this amazing team in the regular season, and then once they kind of roll into the tournament, they tend to kind of shit on themselves in the biggest moments. I think they get past Utah State here, but I don't think they get to the Final Four, and that'll be my preview for what's to come.
Yeah, Utah State's a good team. They played well. They did what they had to do in their conference to win it. But I think their run will end with Arizona. Do I think this could be a game maybe early on into the second half? Absolutely, to give Arizona a scare. But I think Arizona's going to overmatch them and be too powerful in the end to move on to the Sweet 16. Will this shock me if this is somehow an upset with Utah State? No, but I think Arizona's still too good and will beat Utah State. All right, Wisconsin, Arkansas. This is a tough one. As we get into those rounds, it's going to become tough, Mark. I'm. I don't know. I'm probably going.
Hoping
I'm
Kyle goes
going.
Arkansas here as we kind of deal with some. I think Arkansas has the firepower. I love the way that freshman's been playing in ACUF. I think he's just an animal, and he's going to take over a lot of these games as he kind of already has in basically the SEC tournament as well as most of the season. So I am obviously going Arkansas there to kind of work through that situation. And as far as the next round goes, I have BYU and Gonzaga. And this is where I start to really mix some things up in this part of the bracket. I have BYU over Gonzaga. I think AJ Devonsa takes this game over. I think he's really hard to deal with, and I think his supporting cast is going to be there as far as his running mate goes. He drops about 18 points a game. I think that's extremely, extremely hard to deal with, and I think that's where Gonzaga kind of gets hurt is there. So, Kyle, I'll throw it back to you as you did cut out right before the Wisconsin Arkansas game. I have Arkansas beating Wisconsin, and I have BYU upsetting Gonzaga to make it to the Sweet
Wow.
16.
Yeah, I like Arkansas. I don't like it. I think Wisconsin could beat them, but I think just how well in the coaching Arkansas will beat Wisconsin to move on. As for
Yeah,
BYU
baby.
Gonzaga, just with, you know what? I would if this was early in the year, I would like potentially that upset because they've been in the same conference before. But I think just the way BYU's been playing and kind of the struggles they've had, I like Gonzaga to move on because I just if BYU maybe got to the Big 12 title game or something, I could maybe have saw an upset here, but
Mm.
I like Gonzaga in that one. All right, so we got both Missouri and Purdue. I think we're both Unless you think, Mark, I think Purdue beats Missouri to get to the Sweet 16 against Gonzaga. I don't see Missouri. Missouri's a decent team, but I don't see them making a run in this after the second round. So I like Purdue. I don't know. You're staying. You're not picking upset on this one, are you? You're just going Purdue.
No, this particular one, I am not picking the upset. I've been kind of waffling as we've been speaking on whether or not I was going to or not. I think this is where, this is probably the last step for Purdue is to win this game. Um, Again, this is the bracket where I think a lot of things are going to get shaken up is these first two regions that we've covered. And I think up until the Sweet 16 outside of BYU, in my personal opinion, um, it's pretty much chalk. But I think once the Sweet 16 happens is where I think a lot of shit is going to hit the fan in this particular region because everybody is so close. So I have Purdue and BYU in the Sweet 16 on that one.
All right, so we'll back up to the Sweet 16. Arizona and Arkansas.
Maybe, right?
This is do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? That's the question. How I see this, how the season's been going, what I'm thinking. I don't know. This is tough. Arizona's good, but are they? Who would they? They would play Gonzaga or Purdue if they win.
Yeah.
I'm going Arizona one more. I can't do it. I'm going Arizona one more out of Wisconsin, out of Arkansas. I don't see these are games that get tougher, folks. I don't like it, but I don't like it. But yeah, I'm going Arizona. This is a coin flip game for me, Mark.
I am going the other way. I'm going to go Arkansas on
Yeah.
this one. I know Arkansas has taken some losses, but all their losses are to really, really good teams. I think this is where Arizona's youth starts to show. And I think when you go youth for youth, Arkansas has top level youth. They have arguably a top two pick on their team. And the other top two pick, in my personal opinion, is on the other side of the Sweet 16 in this very region. I think, like I said when we talked about the last game, I think some of these star freshmen, when the lights are the brightest, they're going to either rise to the top or they're going to shit on themselves. I think I'm going to pick them to rise to the top. I think Acuff takes this game over once again, and I think Arkansas beats Arizona, and this is where Arizona starts to kind of bottleneck out and show their true colors. Like they have time and time again, I like Arkansas to win a very, very close game. I'm expecting a game winner or a missed game winner somewhere.
Close. Purdue Gonzaga. I'm pulling the upset here again. I think Gonzaga's over Purdue. I like Gonzaga. I just think Purdue at some point. I think Purdue's a little softer, and I think Gonzaga wants it. So I think Arizona and Gonzaga meet in the Elite Eight. Mark.
Very interesting. I am also going with the upset against Purdue, but I think it's BYU who upsets them. Again, I think DeBonsa is just too much to deal with. Purdue, obviously, they pretty much ran through that Big Ten tournament, but it wasn't exactly easy for them either. It wasn't like they were blowing everybody out. They had to really scratch and claw all through the Big Ten tournament. And I think again, DeBonsa kind of comes in and understands that he's fighting in the same region with the other kid that could be a top pick. I think they're jostling for that number one pick, and he understands that right now is where he can make the craziest name for himself. I think this is where he starts to really put it on a softer Purdue team that isn't really that big. DeBonsa's a big, long kid who can play on all three levels of the floor. I think he takes this game over, and the White Boys of Purdue falter here and get upset.
All right. Elite Eight. You got BYU Arizona. Who are you taking?
I have BYU Arkansas, where I think Arkansas.
Oh,
wins
Arkansas.
this
My
one
fault.
as well.
Arkansas. Right.
Again, I think it's a battle of two insane and stellar freshmen. I think Arkansas wins. They have a better supporting cast, and I have Arkansas going to the Final Four, and Coach Cal bringing yet
Wow.
another team right up there.
So I got Arizona Gonzaga.
What will
This
he
is
do,
tough.
ladies and gentlemen?
This is. It was, I hate this. It's like, man, I'm
Checking
going.
his bracket in real time, and I can see
It's
the
It's
sweat
gonna
dripping.
change when I put in my pools for everybody. It's probably gonna change But oh boy, oh boy, even though how much I dislike Gonzaga, they're a good team. They always reload.
How they do.
I don't know. What do I do?
Do it, Kyle. You can do it.
I, uh, this is tough. It's tough, Mark. I'm going. Give me Arizona. I can't do it. I can't do it.
And
I
there
don't
you
know,
have it,
man.
ladies and gentlemen.
Arizona gets to the Final Four. I don't know about Gonzaga, man. They can make a run, but they're one of those teams that falls. So I've got Michigan State and Arizona. Mark's got Duke and Arkansas so far. So we got two more regions to go. We're promised we're not trying to bore you. We're trying to get through these as fast as we can for y'all, so y'all can start making your brackets, even though we're uneducated and don't know anything. So don't rely on us
That
to
is
do that.
true.
Hey, real quick before we get going with our two more regions, we want to give a shout out to a family friend of mine, Mariah, who bought her first house a couple of weeks ago. As she bought her first house a couple of weeks ago, and Mariah's a great family friend, and I always enjoy when we get to have talk to her. And she comes and visits, and she's a great person. So Mariah, congratulations on your new house, and hope the house owner life goes very very well for you. All right. So we're going to move to the Midwest. The third overall seed is Michigan out of the Big Ten, as the record 31-3 in history, tied second most in the Big Ten with wins. As big wins, as I'm trying to look here. Yeah, so this is a very interesting bracket, Mark. Probably one of the easiest out of the
It
three
is
so
the
far we've
easiest. Don't
talked.
say one of. It is the easiest.
The easiest we talked about, as they got Akron, Ohio, Akron University's in it, Georgia, St. Louis, Miami of Ohio's in it. They get the playing game. Mark, what stood out to you in this part of the region?
Um, I will definitely say the idea that Michigan, as close as they played that conference championship game, loses their conference championship game, has a loss to Duke on the record, and does end up getting the easiest, um, basically the easiest bracket in my personal opinion. I also find it very interesting that both Akron and Miami of Ohio end up in the same bracket. Couple of hometown teams with some hometown players up there. So those are my two things for the region. Um, and yeah, I mean, outside of really Iowa State, who as kind of give or take, they've had their ups and downs. Michigan looks to I'll just kind of give a preview. They look to roll through this pretty easily if they can kind of kick it into gear. And they
Yeah,
avoid Duke, in a potential Final
the
Four if they
Florida
get
Duke
there.
they would get the West winner, which would either be whoever comes out of the West and all that. So this is very interesting. They could face the UMBC Howard, which is another playing game that is tomorrow,
UMBC,
Tuesday.
a team that made a run a few years ago as well.
Pulled an upset on Virginia the last time they played number one, so it's always sneaky with them. But I think Michigan handles business there. But one of the upsets, this is tough. This is two potential upsets. I like Santa Clara over Kentucky, but also like, can Akron pull over the upset over Texas Tech? Texas Tech's been struggling a little bit, and Akron's been playing one of three straight the Mid American titles, the MAC. So I don't know, Mark. These are two upsets. It's hard to just pick one in this one. Either Akron over Texas Tech or Santa Clara over Kentucky.
I could tell you right now, I have three on my board.
In
Um,
this region,
in
wow.
this region alone, I think it's so bad that it could be fun to watch. I also agree. I'll tell you right now, I have Akron beating Texas Tech. Go Zips! I think Akron is playing another. They play a good brand of basketball. Texas Tech, I mean, they are who they are. They have JT Toppin, but I believe he also is dealing with a little bit of injury concerns as well walking into this tournament. So, I mean, I understand Texas Tech does have some good wins. They beat Iowa State. They beat Arizona just in the month of February. They've beaten Houston, and they won a close game in December against Duke. But at the same time, um, I like the way that Akron played in that MAC tournament. I mean, they really put it on teams, and I think being in the Midwest region, they have kind of an opportunity. They only play, I believe, in Dayton, which is 2 hours away, or
Not even like 40 minutes. The coach
Yeah,
said or
so and
something like that.
I believe they are playing in Dayton. Oh no, they're in Tampa. It's the other team, Miami of Ohio, who I'll go to right now, who I think is the other upset after they beat SMU. I think
Mm.
Tennessee is kind of mid to me, and Miami of Ohio has the opportunity to kind of show, like, yeah, we did lose to UMass in that tournament, but nobody wanted to play us, so now you have to play us. So come play us and see what happens. I think they beat. I think they're the ones that end up beating SMU, and they have a good chance to beat Tennessee here as well. So I think those are my two big ones. I also do like Santa Clara over Kentucky. Kentucky is not who they used to be under Coach Cal. There's obviously a different coaching regime in there now, and I don't think they're as strong as what you're used to Kentucky being.
Yeah, I like. We can't talk. I mean, Virginia is hanging around. Virginia is runner up in ACC this year as they're a 13 to 4 or 14 win improvement from last year where they did
Yeah.
not make the tournament. So hats off to them for a quick turnaround there. And they're taking on Wright State, who's out of the horizon of Cleveland State Conference. So Wright State could be a little sneaky, but I think Virginia would be too much. Yeah, Miami, Ohio. Let's see how they bounce back. Remember, Miami was a big talking point last week. Miami, Ohio lost to UMass in the conference tournament on day one in the quarterfinals. Nobody, it was a big story point if they would get in or not, but they're in, Mark. So we will see. If they win, they got to play SMU first to get to Tennessee in the sixth round of 64. But we will see on that. Mark, let's start. Let's get this picks rolling. I think we both have Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't. Michigan's not going to lose first round UMBC or Howard. Georgia, St. Louis. I don't know. I like St. Louis in this one.
I do as well.
I just think Georgia. I don't know much about if it was football. I think we know who'd go if it was football, but I just think St. Louis basketball. I think has the better team right now over Georgia. Georgia hasn't really they got upset by Ole Miss, the 15th seed in their conference tournament. So I like St. Louis in that one. So we're both going there. Mark, this is the one I'm Texas Tech and Akron. You like Akron? Oh, I'm. I could smell this upset 5-12 upset. Do I do it?
Do it, Kyle.
Texas Tech's been struggling. I
They
think. Or you know
they
what?
did not look very like they didn't look very good in their conference championship. Now, up until basically March started, they were playing good basketball. Their only loss was to Kansas and Houston, but at the same time, like I mean, they beat teams like Duke, they beat teams like BYU, Houston, Arizona. They gave a loss to Iowa State. They gave a loss to. Then they got to their conference tournament, and they kind of faltered a little bit. I mean, I
Right.
can see Texas Tech making a run, but I can also see Akron being overlooked and upset them, and that's what I'm picking.
Picking Akron, I like that. I'm just looking at Akron's schedule real quick. I wanted to see something with their schedule, just because I want to see. It's gonna be tough. Ah, man. I think I'm gonna go Texas Tech slightly, but this would be my upset if I picked it. This would be my up. I don't know about this one. I just my heart. If, I'd go Texas Tech. If this is the 5-12 upset, this is gonna be the 5-12 upset of the tournament right there. Akron. I think
And
they
all
could.
I think is going to depend on JT Toppin's health because I
Yeah,
believe he was injured in their conference tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't like it, but I want to pick Akron so bad. But knowing me for our brackets, I will probably pick Texas Tech. It's just tough, but I'm going Texas Tech in a very close game. I think Alabama Hofstra. Alabama's the highest scoring team in the nation. Mark, does Hofstra have a chance, or is Bama going to roll to second round?
No, Bama's going to win. Hofstra's, I thought they were the Hofbrauhaus for a minute. But yeah, I think Bama rolls. They probably drop like 100 points or something crazy like that, and they move on to the next round. Bama is just, I mean, they're a good team. They play in the tough SEC. Who obviously the SEC had the most teams with 10 in the tournament, just above the Big Ten with 9. So the SEC, just like in football, in basketball, is also no joke this year. And I think Bama rolls.
Yeah, I'm going Bam. I did their size and length's going to do a lot on Hofstra. Hofstra's getting into the tournament for the first time in a couple of years, so good for them. But I like Alabama over Hofstra. All right, Tennessee and the winner of Miami, Ohio, SMU. Are you pulling another upset here, Mark? Miami of Ohio,
I'm
as you've
going with
been.
Miami of Ohio on this one. I don't
Wow.
really. I I tend to get the feeling that now that they've got their loss out of the way, like the idea of a perfect season is not um, weighing on them so much, especially being a team from the MAC.
Right.
I think now they can play a little bit more loosely and a little bit more free. They've played in a lot of close games and won. Now, obviously, they lost to UMass, but I don't really think this is where I say, and I'm going to take a little bit of something from Wally Zerbiak, Cleveland Cavs legend, of course, um, from the selection show yesterday. I think when it comes to Miami of Ohio, they tried. There's been a lot of stories and reports coming out that they tried to get a lot of these big name teams to play them in the out of conference schedule, and nobody wanted to play them for some reason. Now they get to force teams to play them each and every week. So SMU is the first one on the docket. I think they get past SMU and they force Tennessee to play their brand of basketball. I think they get past Tennessee as well. I mean, they showed all year long that they have the horseshoe stuck up their ass, and they won some games that they should have never even come close to winning. And I think that rides well in the tournament until it doesn't. And I think for the first two games of theirs, it still stuck up their ass, and some St. Patty's Day magic comes out of it.
I like Tennessee. I think whoever wins Tennessee's at least going to make it past the first round. I love Miami, Ohio. Root for the hometown team, but I just think Tennessee will some at least make it to the second round just
Yep.
with how they've been playing. Virginia, Wright State. I like Virginia. Wright State could give them a little bit of problem. This could be maybe a small potential upset, but I think Virginia, how good they've been this year, in the number two seed. I don't see them losing in that round, Mark.
Yeah, I agree. Virginia just played a really, really close game against Duke in the conference tournament as well. They've been playing pretty good basketball. Their only losses in the past basically 2 months have been to North Carolina and Duke twice. So I mean, those are no slouch teams. Duke is the number one overall seed. North Carolina is in this tournament as well. Virginia seems to be the Virginia of old for the most part, and I like them in this bracket, and especially in this game against Horizon League Wright State, another Ohio team.
Yeah, so Kentucky, Santa Clara. This will be a potential upset for me. I don't know. This is back and forth. Oh man, we both think Iowa State's gonna be Tennessee State, so we won't even talk about that. We like Iowa State. For
Yes.
this one, it's the beauty of March. You just don't know. You want to pick
It's
one, but
tough too
then
because when you look at I mean when you look at Santa Clara, obviously they're a 10 seed. Their only losses are to Gonzaga 3 times, St. Louis once, and St. Mary's once. All those teams
yeah,
are in the tournament and are high seeds in this tournament. St. Mary's a 5, Gonzaga's a 3, St. Louis is the 9 seed in this very bracket. So it's not like they're losing to slouch teams in this run up to March.
yeah, and Santa Clara beats St. Mary's to get to the West Coast Conference title game last week against Gonzaga, where obviously it ultimately fell. I like Kentucky. Santa Clara kind of limped in a little bit, so I'm going Kentucky. This could be a close game, but I think Kentucky holds on there to face Iowa State. All right, so we got Michigan and St. Louis. I think we're both picking Michigan to beat St. Louis.
Yep.
Can St. Louis give them problems? I think so,
It's
but I think
potential.
Michigan.
They shoot a
I
good
think
3 ball.
yeah, I then we know what happens when you shoot three ball. Wisconsin shooting a three ball, but I think Michigan will hold serve and get the win over St. Louis. All right, you got Akron and Alabama. Does Akron roll, are we getting Michigan and Alabama for you in the Sweet 16?
No, this is where Akron zips, kind of gets zipped up here, put in a body bag. Bama probably scores another 100 points somehow, some way. I'm going Bama to play Michigan in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I like Bama or Texas Tech. Texas Tech is kind of like BYU. They've kind of fell off the last couple of weeks before the tournaments, and they were red hot. You know, everybody was watching and loving them, but they fell off. I like Alabama to get past Texas Tech. Tennis. No, you pick Miami, Ohio, and Virginia. Miami, Ohio, keep it going, or is Virginia moving on to the Sweet 16?
Unfortunately, I think all the upsets come in the first couple days of this tournament, and especially in this region. I This region alone, I think, gets chalked. I'll just kind of go through, and I have both Virginia and Ohio or Iowa State, excuse me, advancing. I think, as far as this region goes, a lot of the teams that are close in seeding, outside of 1, 2, 3, and 4, are all pretty close in comparison. But after that, once you kind of get to the round of 32, I don't really see it going any other way than chalk. And I have Virginia playing Iowa State in the next round.
Yeah, I like Virginia. I have Tennessee. I think Tennessee's kind of been low on the thing, and I don't think Tennessee's pop man enough to make a run. I like Virginia in that one. All right, Iowa State, Kentucky. I think we're both picking Iowa State over
Really?
Kentucky, as Kentucky's run comes to an end. All right, Michigan, Alabama. This is where Michigan can run into some problems, but I think Alabama's kind of not been as manpowered. If Michigan, this is where I think Michigan could start getting in trouble. I like Michigan barely, but I could definitely see Alabama pulling the upset here, Mark.
Yeah, Bama definitely has the offense to give Michigan problems, but it's going to be about, and I kind of said it during the Big Ten championship to obviously you and our buddy Sean, who is another big time Michigan fan. It's all going to depend on how Lindenborg and their big man Mara plays in this tournament. Lindenborg was all but absent the entire Big Ten tournament for whatever reason, and that's the Big Ten Player of the Year over guys like Bruce Thornton, and kids like that. So I think it's all going to be dependent on really those two guys. Their point guard has been playing really well in Cadeau. If he continues to play well, especially because there's really no backup option for him with Michigan's backup point guard being out for the season with a torn ACL. If he can stay true and Lindenborg and Mara can kind of wake up, Mara's been playing really well throughout the Big Ten tournament in the last couple of weeks. I think they should have no problem here. I'm going to go Michigan, but I do think it's a close game, as you do have guys like Philon and Holloway on the other end who are averaging 21 and 17 points respectively a night. So I mean, they're definitely not short of scoring, but it's about Michigan's defense, who at one point was number one in the country, and usually a good defense is going to beat a good offense 9 out of 10 times, and that's where Michigan's going to prevail here.
Yeah, I like Michigan, Alabama. All right, so you got Virginia and who? Who did you pick? No, Virginia and who?
I have Virginia and Iowa State.
Iowa
Um,
State. That's right. Yeah,
but
yeah,
you can pretty much chalk it up the rest of the way for me. I have Iowa State moving on, and then I have Michigan in the Final Four. Like I said, after the round of 64, I think basically after that you have to go chalk in this region. The top teams are very top heavy, and I think there are leaps and bounds ahead of each team that they play week in and week out. 1 through 4 is just going to roll until they find the next team better than them, and I think that's how it works in this region.
yeah. I like Michigan to get to the Final Four to take on Arizona. All right, 3 regions down, 1 to go, and we promise we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, 1 to go, and we're in the South region, where Florida, the Gators are hailing as the number 1 seed. Probably the second easiest division, or second easiest region, outside of the fact that they have to run through Houston and Illinois. Another kind of Big Ten ridden region here, Kyle. As we did lose you for a second again, Florida is the number 1 team. I arguably put this as either the easiest or the second easiest region.
Well,
outside
real
of the
quick,
fact-
Mark. We'll get back to you in a minute. We do have quick breaking news. Justin Fields traded to the Chiefs. We
Yes,
got that.
I did
breaking.
see that. I didn't see what they traded it for. An interesting 1-year bridge for Fields to replace Mahomes, and they probably sit Mahomes for the entire year officially now. But some very interesting news to break during the podcast here. I'm not sure. I'm sure they probably only traded a 5th rounder or something like that.
Yeah. So
But
all right. Back to the March. Yep. Go right ahead.
But yeah, I mean, again, this region pretty easy. Florida again kind of gets loses in their conference tournament and gets a bit of an easier bid. They do arguably get probably the best 2 seed that there is in Houston. In my personal opinion, Houston had argument for a 1 seed in some way, shape, or form. They also play a tough and a pesky Illinois team potentially as well down the stretch. So they have that, but other than that, there's really not a lot of stuff here. You have North Carolina, who is really good in name, and that's about it. Obviously, they got into the tournament, but should be again another interesting situation where you have a lot of these teams after basically your 4 seed or 3 seed, in my personal opinion, that all end up being a lot closer than you think just based off of seeding.
Yeah, this is an interesting bracket. I think it could be. I think this might hold chalk a little bit. I think Florida and Houston will meet in the
Oh,
Elite Eight.
100%.
But if there was an upset, I'm
I'm going VCU with the
I
with the
was
upset
looking
pick.
at that. I was looking at that. I was also looking Troy over Nebraska. Get this: Nebraska has not won a conference or an NCAA tournament game in their program history. Every time they made it, they have
Oof.
not won. So this could be something to keep their eye on, folks, when you're making your bets and making your brackets out. So that's very interesting to see. Clemson, Iowa could be a very low. We know how low scoring game. You know Iowa's defense is in that game, and I might like Iowa in that one. So let's pick these games as we continue. I think we're all picking Florida. Don't have to worry about picking Florida, Mark. I'm picking 8-9 Clemson, Iowa. I'm picking Iowa. I think Iowa's got good defense. I think they could survive the first round against Clemson with their defense.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going Iowa as well. The thing with Clemson is I watched them in the ACC tournament. They don't really have one guy that they can turn to. Everybody is pretty much the same, around 10 to 12 points a game. Meanwhile, Iowa has Sturts who puts in 20 points a game, like right away. So they've got a scorer that they can turn to in their worst case scenario. They play really good defense. Clemson has basically been getting whooped on for the last 2 months. And obviously they've played really good teams, but then you've got Iowa, who also, give or take, has been getting whooped on. They've won one game in the last 2 months, but all their games are relatively close, and they played a lot of teams multiple times, which does get pretty difficult. I think Iowa wins this one, and Clemson just doesn't have enough. They have a lot of guys that are all around the same talent. I don't think they have one guy to turn to, and that hurts them.
Yeah, I like Iowa, or yeah, Iowa or Clemson. All right, Vanderbilt McNeese, another 5-12 could be an upset. Vanderbilt's been playing very well, Mark. I like Vanderbilt to get past McNeese, even though McNeese is kind of that tricky team. Give me Vanderbilt in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt got all the way until the SEC finals. They've beaten teams like Florida. They beat Tennessee twice. They beat Alabama and they beat Kentucky on their way here. So they've been riding a hot hand. They also, I mean, they looked good against Arkansas for the most part, as well until late. So I've got Vanderbilt here, passing by McNeese, and moving on.
Nebraska, Troy. I think Nebraska gets their first win, even though they lost in their first game in the Big 12 or the Big 10 tournament. I mean, Troy could shoot the lights out of the Sun Belt, out of anybody, but I just think Nebraska will be too much in the end. All right, Mark's upset North Carolina over or North Carolina VCU. Is VCU going to win? North Carolina is without their best player Caleb Love, who is out with an injury with his arm, so he's not playing. Do we see an upset here, Mark?
Yeah, this is why I am actually taking VCU here, is because without Caleb Wilson, what do they look like? He's got an arm injury. Obviously, he might be able to potentially come back. I would guess if they were to move on and get past the first weekend, but I don't think they get past the first game. VCU is a perennial tough team to play in the tournament. They play that fast-paced basketball, and if you can't keep up, they will run you right out of the gym. They looked good in their conference tournament. They obviously won that, and I mean, while they kind of limped down, they ended up. They played a close game against St. Louis until St. Louis pulled away at the end. They beat Dayton twice to end the season, and ran through their conference to get here. They're running a hot hand. They run a hard style of basketball to keep up with, and without your best player, I think VCU as a team plays great team basketball and team press defense, and I think that bothers a lot of teams. Give me VCU.
I think North Carolina finds the first round, I think, against VCU. VCU had to kind of run the table to get to the Atlantic 10 conference, and they
Yep.
won VCU. If they didn't make that run, they actually, yeah, if they didn't make that run, they
Oh,
would
they're not
probably
even
not going.
close.
Yeah, so I like North Carolina in this one to to win as they got the automatic bid Atlantic 10 as they had to defeat Dayton. If VCU would not have won the tournament, they wouldn't have gotten in.
And shout out to
So
Dayton, by the way, one of the game winners of the weekend that was really exciting to watch.
yeah, we're St. Louis in the tournament this past Saturday. All right, Illinois Penn. This might be an upset. I mean, you got Illinois who is playing decently. Lost in a big Penn. You got Fran McCaffrey, excuse me, who is the former Iowa coach, knows the Big Ten well. This could be a sneaky upset if Fran McCaffrey does. But Mark, I think I'm liking Illinois. But I won't be surprised, Mark, if we're talking about this game next week as a potential, upset of Illinois falling in the first round.
Yeah, Penn must have prayed to their
Ivy League.
classroom books as they shouldn't even be here. Yale had that game won and they kind of gave it away.
Yeah.
And then
Buzzer
Penn ended
beater.
up winning in overtime. Penn has been limping into this. Their only win other than Yale throughout the conference tournament was against Cornell. Obviously, they're very smart, but I think they're book smart, not basketball smart. Whereas Illinois has only lost to extremely good tournament teams. They've lost to a UConn team, a Michigan State team, and a Michigan team. So that's a 1, a 2, and a 3 seed in this tournament. I think Illinois is just too powerful, and they send these guys back to the classroom.
Yeah, Illinois wins that one. All right, St. Mary's. All right, we know Houston's going to defeat Idaho, so we're not going to really talk about that game.
All
St.
Idaho
Mary's
has is good potatoes.
right? St. Mary's A&M. I like St. Mary's in this one, Mark. I don't know much about A&M or that much. I don't think they have the willpower to advance, so I like St. Mary's in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I like St. Mary's. When I look at Texas A&M, obviously they're in a tough SEC, but there was basically every game in the last 2 months, they've given up north of 80 points except for one. They played Texas 76-70 and lost. Alabama scored 100 points on them. Arkansas scored 99 points on them. And Tennessee scored 87. So now, granted, they've played high-scoring games where they beat Auburn 90-88 and they beat Kentucky 96-85. But at the same point, St. Mary's is a good basketball school. They're a good basketball team. They did lose a heartbreaker to Santa Clara, but St. Mary's has also beaten Santa Clara this month. They've beaten Gonzaga this month, and they've also beaten Wichita State earlier in the season as well. They played another close game against Gonzaga. So really, I mean, outside of losing to Vanderbilt, who kind of started their run with beating St. Mary's, they've only lost to teams that are in this tournament outside of Wichita State. Give me St. Mary's in this one. They're a perennial tournament contender, and we all know they can shoot the lights out.
Yeah, so Houston, St. Mary's, you both got that one. All right, back to the top. Florida, and you picked Clemson, right? Or did you pick
I had Iowa as well.
Florida and Iowa. Who do you got in that one?
Florida's going to dog walk them.
Yeah, Florida. I mean, could that stingy D play a little bit of a role in early on? Yes, but I think Florida will be too much and empower them to the Sweet 16. All right, Vanderbilt in Nebraska. I like Vanderbilt in this one, Mark. I like
too.
Vanderbilt over Nebraska. I just think Nebraska when Nebraska lost to Purdue, who were eventually Big Ten champions. I don't think Nebraska's cut for March. For being really honest with you, I like and Vanderbilt has showed their whoop. Who would have thought Vanderbilt, right? In football and basketball, been doing it, and even the women's side too. They've been killing it in basketball, so they've been doing very well with that. All right, you have VCU and Illinois. Who do you like in that one?
This is where VCU gets kind of halted in their tracks. Illinois probably just rolls through them pretty easily. I just think they're too top heavy. And this is where this bracket, outside of Vanderbilt, which 4 and 5 is pretty much as close as you can get, pretty much gets chalked after. Again, after that round of 64, I think when it comes to the round of 64 in these easy brackets, that's where a lot of the parity comes. And pretty much after that is where it just gets chalked up.
Yeah, I like Illinois, and I like out of North Carolina, Illinois. I think Illinois will survive to at least the second weekend because North Carolina is missing their star player, is going to play a factor. So give me Illinois over North Carolina in that one. All right, I think we're both picking Houston over St. Mary's, right? I don't think Houston's going to fall or struggle at St. Mary's. I think they'll handle them. All right, Florida and Vanderbilt. SEC, remember last time Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament kicked the crap out of Florida.
Yep. I mean, this is going to be a tough one. Obviously, I think um, Florida rolls, but at the same point, you've also seen kind of late in the season, especially in their conference tournament, Florida has kind of limped a little bit since December. Since December 1st, they've lost to Duke, they've lost to UConn, and they lost to Vandy already. Now, I think that plays a factor in the fact that Florida has an opportunity to kind of right their wrong. But I think Florida rolls into the next round in this one, and they kind of get the opportunity to show that Vandy kind of had a flash in the pan against them, and now they get to right that wrong, and they get the opportunity to play either Houston or Illinois. Obviously, we all know, and we have talked about how good both of these teams are. Houston limping a little bit more into this than what Illinois is, Kyle. We kind of lost you there for a second. Houston has the better player overall in this matchup. I believe you had Houston and Illinois as well. Where do you think you're going in this one as well? You have Houston, who, in my personal opinion, since the new year, has kind of limped a little bit more than Illinois has, but they have Kingston Flemings, who is an ESPN top 100 player, and probably a high draft pick. Who do you got in this one?
I like Houston. I think Houston is going to match up with Florida. I know we talk about Vanderbilt kick the crap out of Florida. I like Vanderbilt or Florida over or Florida and Houston getting the Elite Eight, and I'm going Houston. I think this Florida. Remember, Florida folks is the defending champ this from
Yep.
last year, but I think Houston continues to make that run to the Final Four, and they get a date with Michigan State. Mark.
Yeah, I agree. I have it there in that way as well. I think at the end of the day, I think Houston is potentially just a bit better than what they've shown. I think Florida has also shown again to potentially have the wheels fall off here and there. Again, Houston probably has the best player in this game, and I think that plays a big factor, especially in college basketball as opposed to the NBA. I really think that when you have that one player that you can turn to in March, that makes all the difference as opposed to the NBA game. So give me Houston in that one to take on. In my bracket, they're taking on Duke in that Final Four game.
Yeah, I got Michigan State. So we're gonna pick the Final Four and national champion right now. Let's do Mark. Give me. You got your two Final Fours. Give me Final Four, the winners, and national champion. Go.
So I think this year the committee set it up to have a dream matchup, a dream rematch in Michigan and Duke, as long as they can handle their business and get to that championship game. I have Duke playing Michigan in the championship. Michigan beats Arkansas narrowly. I think they're big enough to match up with some of their good freshmen, and I think that's kind of where the freshmen might start to falter a little bit. And you kind of have some senior guys led in Michigan. Same with Duke. I think the Boozers are just too good. I think Duke might just be too good, and they're starting to turn back into form. I think I have Duke and Michigan here to meet in the NCAA dream matchup, dream rematch. I think Duke wins a close one, and I think they get a second win over Michigan. And while up until about 3 days ago, I had Michigan winning it all. I will admit it. It hurts me to admit it, but Michigan was playing amazing basketball. Then the Big Ten tournament rolled around, and they started to kind of slip and falter. They didn't play their best basketball. Now maybe that helps them because they got some close wins under their belt and a loss. But at the end of the day, I think Duke is just too strong until proven otherwise. And I think they win again in a very, very close national championship game where this is exactly what the committee wants, and I think it happens.
Oh, this is tough for Michigan State and Houston. This is going to be tough. Houston, national runner-up next year. I have them getting back in the Final Four. Oh boy, I think I'm going. I was thinking Michigan State, but I like Houston. I think Houston gets to the national title game again.
So Kyle has picked Michigan State to get to the championship game, a very interesting turn of events, as that is his favorite team's in-state rival. Do we have? We'll see when we get Kyle back here from some of the wind issues. But potentially Kyle looking at a Michigan versus a Michigan State matchup, a battle of the state of Michigan for the title. This could be a very, very interesting thing to look at. Kyle, looks like we're back. Are we looking at a battle of Michigan to hoist this trophy in your eyes?
I like Houston, and then I don't know. It's just Michigan's missing their backup point guard, so it's tough. Over Arizona, I'm going Michigan. You know what? I'm being a homer this year.
You have
I don't
to.
know.
You have to. You have the opportunity. Just seize it, Kyle. Seize it.
I don't like it. I'm going Michigan. But I will say I would not be shocked if Michigan gets knocked out before the Final Four just with their injury situation, how they've been playing. I would not be shocked. So everybody will come at me, ha ha ha, but that's fine. So I like Michigan to win it all. But I could see Houston, Duke, Michigan State. I don't think Arizona has a chance to win it all. I think they'll falter. So, but the brackets are going to be busted, and we're not. Somebody random's going to win it, like Florida last year. So I'm like, we didn't think
100%.
Florida would win it, and Florida made the run and win it. So, well, that was fun, folks. That was fun. We hope you enjoyed our bracket March Madness preview show.
Yeah, I mean, very exciting to say the least. We will have a lot of our stuff up for you guys to see. And again, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. We hope you're about to get ready and enjoy March Madness just how we are. Do not forget that next Wednesday it's 7 p.m., right, Kyle? 7 p.m.
Yep,
We are live.
7 p.m.
We'll be doing a free agency frenzy live for the NFL as even more
And a
news
March
will
Madness
play.
update.
And
March
a
Madness
Madness
update.
update. So we'll have a lot to talk about on our live next week. We'll catch up on all the crazy free agency news as more keeps coming in, as you just kind of seen on this show. More happens each and every week, and we can't wait to speak to you guys. We'll put some information out so that you can still attend. So there's some reminders out as well on both my IG and Kyle's IG. So be on the lookout for that as well.
Yes, we want Mark. I know Mark's good at that. He's going to make a poster for next week to remind us with the ChatGPT, whatever he used, like he did last time for the 9 o'clock show. He used it for the 7 o'clock show next Wednesday. So, all right, we're getting out of here. From Kyle, he's Mark. Enjoy the madness that's about to take place over this week, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday to wrap it all up and to continue to get you ready for the second weekend. And don't forget, go USA, WBC. That's well, when this comes out, we'll know who won a race. So we'll kind of
USA.
We'll talk about that next week as well for a little bit. So we love you. We can't wait to see you next week live on the Final Whistle. Goodbye.